Hello everyone, and welcome to a double page scrapbook layout where we are going to be using this gorgeous new paper that I absolutely love. And I am going to do a one sheet of pattern paper double page scrapbook layout today. This paper, I did an unboxing earlier this week showing what I had bought from the brand new March 2025 online release. So if you haven't checked it out, I'll leave a link below so you can see all the new goodies. Not only the ones that I've shared on my video, I'll also put a link to the website so you can see them. Now with this pack, you get 3 sheets of each of these papers. So I've only got one sheet out here just to show you. So there's an obvious brown colorway and then there is a grey colorway. So I am making up kits for an upcoming scrapbook workshop. So if you're in Melbourne and you'd like to come along to one of my workshops, check out my Facebook page. I've got a post on there with a link for you to register. This one that I'm working on is for Pakenham, and that's the registration kit that people will be getting today. So there will be 2 different versions. I'm going to bring in the other layout that I've created using the brown colorway. So there'll be one kit available, but there'll be 2 different colorways. This one here has definite brown tones, so I have paired that with brown accents. This one here has grey or more muted tones, so I'm pairing this with grey accents. So when it comes to choosing colours for mats for these, I am using up some old CTMH cardstock because this is the last month that we can do that, but you could definitely use basic grey. I've got charcoal here that you could use, so basic grey would work really well with this one, or you could even bring in black. So this is the new Stampin Up 2-tone black, so you can see with our black now we actually get 2 colors of black, which I really love. So the reverse side of this would work really well. It's very close to charcoal, but basic grey would work well with this one. And then for this one here, I'm bringing in mink. Now to me, that is like grey granite. Now I can't get 12 by 12 sheets of just one pack of grey granite yet, but it is coming very soon. So I think grey granite would work with this one. So my stamping is going to be with basic grey with this texture here. And for the workshop, it'll be grey granite for this texture. That will work well. And this is how I work out what I'm going to do for scrapbooking kits and just my everyday scrapbooking. I basically get the papers out and I look at the ink pads that I have so far with Stampin' Up. I don't have all of them so far, but Early Espresso will work with this colorway, and it will also work with this one really well. And if I bring in this brown texture, Early Espresso will work really well with this one if you want a darker accent, and it will work well with that one. If you wanted to match this paper perfectly, you would go with pecan pie, but personally I like the contrast of what I'm going to do today with the Early Espresso for these 2 paperways. So I'm just going to clear this away because the paper that I'm going to work with is this one, and I've chosen this one for a very specific reason, and it's all to do with the pattern here. Now none of these other patterns have a definite orientation. You might want to orientate it this way, but you could definitely rotate it so that the patterns in the rug here or the woven basket run across that way. So it just depends what orientation you want things running in, but this one has a circular pattern and I'm wanting to do strips of cardstock across here. So I want to cut it in a specific way so that hopefully it will match up a little bit better running across 2 pages, and it will mean that I only have to use 1 sheet of pattern paper. So I'm just going to get my trimmer out, and I know that I want to do 4-inch strips going across. So I'm going to cut a 4-inch length from this end. I'm going to keep it at 4 inches by 12 inches. And that is going to run across this area here. And then I'm going to rotate my paper and cut the top edge of this at 4 inches as well. And now I have 2 pieces that have the same pattern going across. Now, if I had just cut them down the middle and put this one next to this side, running across a left and a right page, that isn't as pleasing as if you rotate the paper and make sure that you use this, especially with the circular design. You cut from the bottom and the top for the 2 strips that are going to run across the page. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is reverse this, because I'm going to have this side coming out from underneath here. And I just want 1/2 inch strips for this. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one as I did for the other. So this one is going to go across the bottom here. And then I'm going to rotate it and cut 1/2 inch so that this one will run across the bottom on this other side. Now, this doesn't actually match up. I thought it might, but it's not going to. But there's not terribly much that is going to show from underneath these. So I actually don't mind that one so much as these obvious patterns here. And I want 2 more 1/2 inch strips. I'm just going to do the same thing with my cuts here, because these are going to go across the top. And if I find that one of these works better than the other, then I will use that. So another 1/2 inch cut. And then I don't need this piece. I can use this for a card or something like that. So I'm just going to see if this matches up on this one here, and that does quite well, or if one of the other ones do. So let's just lay these strips out so that they go across the page like this. And I've just picked up a different one here. And this cut here, I think, matches a little bit better with that one. So that is going to be my top piece running across. And possibly, if I turn this around, this one's going to match that one a little bit better. So what I'm going to do now is give some added texture to these. Now, this already has texture on it, but I want to give it a little bit more distressing with my scissors here. So this is basically running your scissors with them closed along the edge. I'm not going for particularly rough cuts with this, or rough distressing. If you have a distressing tool, you can use that. But I find with the distressing tool I have, trying to distress the edges of 1/2 inch strips is a little bit challenging. So I'm going to do this for all the bottom edges of these pattern papers. So that's why I wanted to lay it out on my bases here, and I'm using basic white. I just wanted to lay it out on my bases so that I know that I'm going to have these all the right way. So you can see me moving my hand up and down this piece just to support it a little bit. And for this one here, I'm going to be quite gentle, because this one is a little bit more flimsy, being only 1/2 inch wide. And I'm just going to go all the way across the bottom of this one. You can see I'm collecting a bit of paper dust here, but I'll worry about that when I have done all the pieces, which I'm going to do off camera. You don't need to sit there and watch me doing this all the way down these strips I've got here. I've got all of my pieces roughed up along the edges here, and just to remind you, I've only done the scissors distressing on the bottom edge of these pieces. I've left the side and the top nice and clean cut. Now, you don't have to do this step, but I quite like doing a little bit of edge distressing. So the next thing I'm going to do is stamp with this textured notes. It's part of the collection of this woven textures and the botanical textures, but it is a standalone stamp set, so you don't have to purchase the papers to get the stamp set. And I was doing a little bit of a test on what colours I wanted to use for this paper. So you can see here I have basic grey here, and the other one here is grey granite. So I think for this paper here, it needs the depth. I'm just going to bring in another pattern here and just show you. When I was doing some testing so that I could put out the correct inks for the ladies at the workshop, I didn't really love the basic grey with this colour here, but the grey granite works really well. The grey granite has a little bit more green in it, I think, and I think that will work. But then the other thing to bear in mind is that the reverse side of this will be up against this stamping, but it's only a small amount that's going to show. So for this colourway, you're going to use the grey granite. And for this one here, they're going to use the basic grey. It still looks nice up against this one, even though the grey granite works well. But I do like the depth of this a little bit better for this rather large basket weave. So what I'm going to do is stamp across the bottom of my 12 by 12 cardstock pieces here. And you've sort of got an idea of the look I'm going for here. So I'm just going to bring this over a little bit, ink this up, and I'm just going to rotate my stamp and go up and down so that there is some white peeking out, so that everything is not going to be exactly the same going across the bottom edge here. And I am overlapping it, and I'm going to hold this up to the camera. Look at the amount of detail that is contained within this stamp image. There's so much light and shade to it. I absolutely love the texture. And that is a benefit of being able to use cling stamps or red rubber stamps. So much more detail is available when you're using this type of a stamp. I was always really scared of cling stamps. When I first tried stamping, I really didn't like them. But now with clear blocks and not wood blocks, this makes all the difference because you're able to see through the block rather than having this all wood and you can't actually see where it's being stamped. Now I've done some along the bottom here. I'm also going to do some in the top corners of each, and I'm staggering those as well. And these layouts are going to be a masculine type feel. You could do them for birthday parties. I'm thinking tropical vacation would work really well. There's a lot of bright colours in beach and tropical vacations, and sometimes a more muted palette as a base will help the photos stand out that little bit more. A lot of my ladies do scrapbook male or masculine or little boy type pages, so I think this stamp set and this paper packet is going to work really well for them. And then I'm going to do a little bit more over in this section here because I've got a little bit more white space that's going to be happening. A little bit off the edge there. This piece here is going to have a strip coming across the top, but that's all I'm going to do for the base layer stamping. But I do want to do some other stamping to this. As I said before, I have already had a play with this design and I've made one with the brown textured paper, but I'm going to bring in a punch and I want to add some texture to this as well. So this is the bow punch and it punches out two at the same time. I've got my cardstock cut at about 2.5 inches because I want to allow space around here so it doesn't get snagged at all. And I always punch from the bottom, and to get more out of my piece of cardstock here, I love having this facing up so I can actually see where I'm going to punch so that it doesn't overlap any of these other pieces here. Once you start overlapping these pieces, it can snag on your punch. So you want to make sure that you've got plenty of allowance rather than getting pieces caught inside. Sorry, this is a little bit noisy, but I'm just going to continue down here and I should be able to get 2 more sets of these. And then I'm going to give them a little bit of treatment so that it ties in with the actual page. And these are going to be sitting on top of my basic white layout. So I need for them to stand out a little bit more, just to have a little bit of a soft effect to them. Give them the texture so that they're visible and they don't get lost. So I'm just going to spread these out. There's a little bit more reflection when I'm filming, so I'm deciding not to use that for now. I have turned some of the leaves around so they're not all the same way. And then I am just simply going to ink up and stamp off. And you get this gorgeous texture to these elements here just with a quick stamp. Now, when it comes to the larger leaves, I do have to do 2 lots of stamping to make sure they're all covered. But I'm going fairly quickly here. I'm not being totally careful, except for when I go down the bottom. I don't want it to overlap too much on the larger ones. But once I've done this, I'm going to take away this piece of white scrap here so that you can see the effect that you get with these leaves. So let me just scooch these off, and look how gorgeous they look. Now, I have done this recently with my Everyday Happiness scrapbook guide, and I use the bow punch for that, but I use the Elements of Text stamp set, and I stamped with the text words across it. But this, I think you can agree, that looks absolutely gorgeous. And when I make up the clusters with some more of these punched pieces, but with some glitter paper, I think this is just going to work absolutely beautifully. So I'm just going to put these off to the side. This silicone mat comes with the glass mat. So it actually works well as a little inkwell type thing if you want to do some ink colouring, but it's also a little sorting holder as well. So I've got some more stamping to do. I'm going to get all the stamping done. I just need to stamp my title. Well, not quite all the stamping. I'm thinking of bringing in some background stamping. I'll just scooch this over to the side a little bit. And I'm going to stamp Love Every Moment. Now, this is from the Everyday You and Me stamp set. There's some great titles here. I purchased this for the titles, not necessarily for the florals. There is a die set that you can get with this as well, but I just wanted these stamps. So I'm just going to do this with the same color and put this in the center here. Oh, before I do that, I'm actually going to die cut it. So I've got these textured notes dies here, and I've also got the neutral matte dots. I'm going to bring those in later. These dies I absolutely love. All of them have detail that presses in to the pieces that you're die cutting, and I need 2 of these. One is going to be my title, and one is going to be like a little journal spot. So I'm just going to wind that through, and then I can show you the texture that you get with this. You don't have to push out any little pieces. It just cuts little slits into there, and it's absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to do 2 of this size in the basic white. I've got another piece pre-cut here. I've just cut these down so it's easy to run through my machine here. And then this one matches the photo mat. So this is close to my heart charcoal, but as I said before, it's very close to basic grey and also the reverse side of the two-tone black cardstock. So I don't know what it is. I always hold my breath when I'm winding things through. I can't talk and wind the die cutting machine at the same time. So this one here, I'm just going to bring that back out so that you can see which ones I've used. Cuts some little slits and dashes going that way. So they're 2 different textures, but I love the pairing of those together. So I'm just going to move this aside so I can stamp onto this piece here my title. Just ink that back up again. And I'm sort of centering that and allowing the ink to absorb into the paper. And I love how that looks. So that is going to tie in nicely with these stamped images, my stamped border pieces, and also the papers that I've chosen. So I'm just going to die cut a small one of these and the larger one with this, and then I'll be back with the construction of the page. So I've got my base layers all ready to go. I'm going to bring in the pattern pieces. So this one is going to go across the top. Just going to do a little bit of a dry fit on camera for you before I adhere these pieces. So you can see I've got this one coming across about 1 inch up, and then this one isn't going to line up directly because I've distressed the edges. I'm going to overlap it just a little bit. So that's going across here. And then I've got my other grounding piece at the top. And then I'm going to lay out my photos here. I know I'm going to have one photo going this way, 6x4. The mats for these are all true sizes. So they're 6x4, and then I've trimmed down my photo placeholders just a little bit, and then I'll trim my photo down a little bit more than this so that I have a white border. Now you could use white cardstock to do this, but I still have some of these. I've got some very kind people who have given me their ones from these because I ran out of them, and they've kindly given them to me because I don't put my personal photos onto social media here. If I want to get photos of my family, I have to promise them that they're not going to appear on social media. So this is my little frame that I stamped with the 2 textured notes rectangles. I love how they look. just adds just that little bit of extra something to a regularly cut rectangle, and doesn't take long to wind these sort of things through your die cutting machine. So now I'm going to bring in my leaves, and you can see I've cut some more here in black. Now if you don't have black glitter paper, you could just use regular black, but I'm thinking I'm just going to put these in around these sections here. So I'm going to have a cluster of them. And you can see how gorgeous does that look with the stamping on there for the leaves. And then I'm going to fill in spaces with these sections. So I'm just going to put this aside for now. I'm going to have one cluster here. I'm going to have one coming out here and another one coming off this section. I've got my layout all adhered with the strips of paper and the photo mats on here. So you can see I've nestled this title part in a little corner of a landscape and a portrait orientated 6x4 photo. And I love doing this with titles. Having somewhere for it to land is just really pleasing to me, rather than having it just in a place at the top. I like to make sure that this element and this element look like they are part of the layout and have somewhere to belong. So I have kept this top left corner here free of adhesive, just to make it easier for me to slide things under. So I'm going to start with these black pieces, and then I'm going to get another large one. So I always like starting with the large items first. This area here I think is going to have the most of these little bough pieces or leaf sprigs in here. I'm just going to try and make it so that it all sort of overlaps and works nicely. Of course, this is just dry fitting. So then I think I might bring in some of these little sprigs. So you can see I've got an arrangement here where this stamped element is separating the two black pieces. And then I'm going to bring in another one of these little glitter pieces here. So you can tuck pieces down a little bit further if you wanted to, and then you can start overlapping pieces as well. And I'm going to use my tweezers to help me adhere everything down here. When I start pulling this out, I'll start with the bottom piece first so that I can apply my glue and then just tuck them under. I'm not too sure how many more of these I'm going to do. I know I need to have another little one of these stamped pieces, and it might be cute to have them sort of coming out and over the edge, just a little bit of that piece. And then I'm going to put another one down in this section here, so maybe a glitter one down here. Might be nice to have one coming across from this section, and then I can put another one of these here. Just need to lift that up a little bit. And I wasn't sure how this was going to look up against this woven texture, but it actually stands out quite nicely. So I'm liking how that's looking. So I'm just doing a rough little fit here. I might put another one of these little sprig pieces in. Might overlap it just a little bit. And then I want to make sure I've got enough pieces left over for this right-hand side. So once again, I'm going to start with this one and then build out from there with the other large ones. So I've got my set of 3, and then I can just fill in some areas here. So a little bit of this coming in, got another sprig that fell off here, so I'm going to put that in down here. I quite like how that's looking. I'm just going to take this away so I can have a little look at the placement of all of these. So if you always start with the bigger pieces and then fill in with the little ones, that works really well. So I am just going to get my tweezers, and this is how I do things. I pull out the one on the bottom, get my liquid glue, and I don't need to necessarily apply it to every little piece. And then it's easy enough to slide under, and then I can just start building in the next pieces. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere all of these other pieces down, and I'll be back with the dot placement and also the other layout version. So I've got all of my clusters adhered down now, and I love how the basket weave just gives the leaves just that little bit of texture. So now I'm going to bring in these neutral matte dots. They're part of the Botanical Textures suite, and I'm just thinking whether or not I'm going to use the black, the white. I could even use this basic beige type colour here, because I think that might work quite well. A little bit more neutral, and I've got enough black accents going on, I feel. So I am just going to sprinkle a few of these around. I think it's going to be enough. I'm getting a little bit of glitter coming off here. Or do I want to have black? Let me put a black one on here just to see. I think I want the black. I'm going to take that one off. I didn't push down very hard on that. And I'm going to do my usual 3 in each section. And you can see that I am putting these partially on top of the actual punched pieces here. Just gives them somewhere to live. The black shows up quite nicely up against this textured paper. And then maybe another large one just down in this section. And then another 3 over in this section here. So partially putting these on top of the punched pieces gives them somewhere to live. But of course you can always just nestle them in amongst other pieces. Now I'm taking that one off because it was directly underneath this one. So I'm just going to put that over here, and I think that will work quite well. So just 3 dots in each section there is quite enough for me. It always works better for me when there are odd numbers. So this is the black and white sort of version of this, or the grey and white and black version of this. I love how this has come out with the textured bow punches. I keep talking about it, but putting that stamping on top of there just brings them to life. I really like how that looks, and I love how gorgeous this stamp image is. So this set, even though it's been designed for card making with these sentiments, you could definitely use You Are Seriously the Best on a scrapbooking layout. And these elements here, I think, are absolutely fabulous for adding accents to scrapbook layouts. So now I'm going to bring in the brown version. So here is the left page. You can see it's got a totally different look with these color tones. Now the brown paper that I have used on this is Close to My Heart Mocha, because I had a bit of that left and I thought it would be fun to use that on this page. And I thought it would team in quite well, and I've got some old mocha glitter paper here as well. But Stampin' Up have a copper tone in the textured metallic 12 by 12 specialty paper. And you can see how well that would work as accents for these leaf elements here. So there's always something that you can find for substitution that you might have on hand if you wanted to replicate this and use some Stampin' Up products. I'm just conscious of the fact that I have a little bit of this left over. I was going to do strips of the mocha glitter paper, but I decided just to leave it as accents on the leaf elements here. I'm actually going to take this off and redo these photo mats because I prefer this side than this one here. So I'm just going to take those off, recut them and put them down. You can see it all looks a little bit of a mess under there. And of course, do the photos with my instructions for the ladies that are coming along to the workshop on the 22nd of March. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me put this together. I can see little boy photos on here on both of these layouts. This one I think would work really, really well with tropical vacation. As I said before, you don't necessarily have to match in all the teals and the blues. This color here represents the sand, so I think it is enough, and it'll make the blues really pop. And sometimes that helps the photos stand out more than having too much of that actual blue in your paper pattern. This one here I could definitely use for country photos. I can put photos of my parents on here, little boy or masculine photos. And I don't know about you, but I have photos of my son when he was young, and we had a big woven basket with his toys in it, and he used to throw all the toys out and climb into that. So I can see a little boy or little girl photos on this. So one piece of pattern paper for a double page spread with some cardstock, some die cut spots for your title and also your journaling, and just some layered stamping going across the bottom just to provide some accents, and in the corners to bring everything in together so the focus is pulled into your photos. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you all next time. Happy crafting everyone, and bye for now.